Word around town is that Terence Crawford is moving on from the Errol Spence Jr. rematch. Yes, guys, we've been talking about it. It's been a minute since we've seen Terence Crawford in the ring. Not too long. It's just I think we're all excited. We're all hyped. You know, the cleanest, maybe not his most exciting fight, maybe not his closest fight or most competitive fight, definitely not his most competitive fight, but I'd say his cleanest and most meaningful win and best resume, name and opponent that he's gotten in his career, you know, over Errol Spence Jr. I think that we all wanted to see him back in the ring and fight Boots. I want to see him fight Canelo. I want to see him fight Teofimo Lopez. Those are all big names, but we all know that Terence Crawford is a man of his word, and he wanted to give Errol Spence Jr. that opportunity to redeem himself. He talked about it recently, but President of the WBC, Mauricio Suleiman, has stated that to his understanding, Terence Crawford will no longer be pursuing that. He's going to go in a different direction. Is it maybe a Canelo Alvarez? Is it Boots Ennis? Or maybe is it Teofimo Lopez? That's a crazy one, but you know, those guys don't like each other, Teofimo and Terence Crawford. Maybe Teo not necessarily doesn't like Terence Crawford. I think it's more that he wants to challenge himself. He said it on multiple occasions that he really wants to find out how good Terence Crawford is. He said that Terence Crawford only fights handicapped fighters, and to some extent, you know, there's a little bit of, you know, you can understand what he's trying to say, because he's saying, you know, everybody, Kell Brook, your Yorkis Gamboa, and Errol Spence Jr., they all, you know, had something wrong with them to some extent, but you know, no fighter really goes into this sport after hard, you know, taxing training camps without any injuries. You know, it's natural in the sport. You know, all the multiple workouts a day. You know, the 5 mile runs. It all adds up. You know, on fight night. So no fighter is 100%, but Terence Crawford, obviously, we want to see him in there with Boots. I just don't think it happens from a financial standpoint. I don't think Boots brings enough to the table to the point where, you know, Terence can really even entertain it, because, you know, respectfully, Boots is probably the biggest threat at 147 for Terence Crawford. He just can't generate enough money to the point where it's worth Terence Crawford's while. And I think that, you know, Teofimo Lopez, I've said this before, that Teo is a more realistic opponent for Terence Crawford than Boots is. You know, you're going to say, Teo's not even at 147. How could you even say that? But realistically, these guys have beef. There's a narrative for that fight already. There's been a narrative for Boots, but it's just, you know, that typical, oh, this young guy, you know, could give Terence Crawford his first loss. And that's always going to be a narrative for any superstar. But Teofimo and Terence Crawford have actually shown that, you know, they want to fight each other, and maybe more so Teo, but Terence doesn't really like Teo, so I think that he'd enjoy that fight. You have guys like Keyshawn Davis that have been getting in the mix, you know, giving their opinions on it. Keyshawn picked Terence Crawford easily, and on paper, yeah, that's probably the safe bet, but I just don't see, you know, Terence Crawford may be saying, you know, Teo doesn't deserve the shot. That's a big possibility as well, but I think it's more realistic in terms of a pay-per-view to fight Teo than for Terence Crawford to fight Boots on a pay-per-view. I don't think it does that much. I think it's too much risk for too little reward for Terence Crawford. But moving on from the Spence rematch, I respect it. I kind of had a feeling this was going to happen. I think that, you know, the weight was going to be an issue in terms of negotiating a rematch. I think that, you know, Spence wants it at 54, but Terence could probably still pull off the 47 weight cut, and, you know, Spence just can't. He looked depleted in that first fight. And I'm not saying that if it was at 54, Spence would have won, but I think that he would have been, you know, obviously healthier, wouldn't have to worry about, you know, going down in weight to the point where it affects his performance and his punch resistance. But, you know, I think that Terence Crawford's just a better fighter. He's too dynamic, a little bit too fast for Errol Spence. You know, I picked Spence, but I also said that it was a fight I had to see with my own eyes. And, you know, to see the first few rounds play out, you could kind of tell that, you know, Errol Spence wasn't turning the tide of that fight. Even though he protested the stoppage like a real fighter, a warrior does, you kind of don't expect less from a champion like Errol Spence Jr. individually taking each one of those 147 pound straps from actual champions. He wasn't just gifted those champions. He's not an email champ. He earned those. He earned each and every one of those belts. Tried to do it to Terence Crawford. Ran into the better man on that night. But Errol Spence, we'll see what he does next. I still think he has a lot of possibilities in the sport. But if he chooses to retire, everything that he's been through outside of the ring, the 2 car accidents, being ejected from his vehicle, the detached retina, having to go through cataract surgery, there's just a lot of wear and tear, that comes along with being a boxer in general, let alone, dealing with stuff outside of the ring. So I understand Errol Spence, if he were to make the choice to not fight anymore, there's not much for him to prove. He could go and fight a guy like Canelo or a Charlo, even though, they're close like that. They're like brothers, so I don't necessarily see that happening. But in terms of the rematch, hearing that it's probably not going to happen, I'm not mad at it. I just also think that there's not much left for Spence to do. Like, you could go fight Keith Thurman at 54, assuming he beats Tim Tszyu, or Tim Tszyu could fight Spence. That's a good fight as well. But realistically, I think that there's not much out there for Spence, and this leaves Terence Crawford in the position where he has to either pick, a fight with, if Canelo's open to it, that's probably his #1 plan. But I think after that, it would probably be, maybe Tiafimo, and then Boots is at the bottom of the list. But it might happen. I just don't see it happening just from a financial standpoint. But who knows? It's very possible. Like, I'm not ruling out anything. I just think that Terence is on the back end of his career, despite still being in incredible shape and performing incredibly well. I think that it's more about, making the big fights, the big money fights happen, and I don't know if Boots is one of those big money fights. But let me know in the comments what you guys think, if you agree, disagree. But thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace. That's going to do it for another Nads Fight Media video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been your boy, Matt Nabong, with another video. Hope you guys enjoyed it all. Thank you guys for the constant support. Salute to y'all always. It's been your boy.